Hey, everybody, and welcome on out to another edition of the Living Dead Wax podcast. I am your host, Ty, joined by my co host, Tyler. Tyler, tonight we are doing a ranking. We are ranking the mighty Van Halen discography. So, how are you doing this evening, my friend? And how are you feeling about tonight's ranking?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm doing good. I feel good about the ranking. I dove heavier in than I ever have before. I've listened to all the records 100%. I definitely have multiple times, but it's like you're trying to listen to new shit, like you're trying to hear new things, so you're trying to like take more away from what you heard it previously. Because certain records I don't dust off very often in the whole album. I dust off the songs I like or whatever, right, and kind of go along there. But going
Sure.
to track 11, minute 54 of fucking balance. It's like, oh shit, okay, I'm doing this. I've done this. I've wandered into these waters just a
Yeah.
little bit. Like here we are, but
Yeah.
it's about I'm feeling good though. It was nice to revisit some stuff.
Yeah, it was definitely fun. So before we get into it, if you do like this type of content, album rankings, discography reviews, vinyl hauls, give us a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, comment down below, all that good stuff. It helps the channel, it helps us out. We greatly appreciate any and all support. So
100%.
tonight we just decided to do this chronologically. It kind of takes a little bit out of the guessing game out of it, sort of. So
Guess
we're
at
gonna
the
just
end.
start. Yeah, so we're just gonna start at Van Halen 1, and we're gonna work our way up to a different kind of truth, and we'll kind of give our takes, little mini reviews on the records, and give our ranking of that album when we're done speaking of it. So let's just start it off. We'll let you kick it off with Van Halen 1, the debut, 1978, the Diamond record.
Oh yeah.
Of
Boom.
Van Halen 1. So give your thoughts on Van Halen 1 and where you rank this in the pantheon of Van Halen albums.
Okay. So I thought we were gonna rank at the very end. I thought we were gonna go over it and then rank at the very end. Am I
Oh,
confused?
gotcha. No,
I thought we were gonna go over the records and rank at the very end.
no, just give your take on the record and just say this is my number 6 or this is my number 5.
Okay. All right. Cut. If you want to remove that, I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, I probably won't, but
Okay, that's fine. All right.
yeah.
So Van Halen 1. So this for me at least, and probably for you too. It's the most played of all the records, whether you want it to be or not at a certain point,
Yeah.
because these are definitely the songs that still, I mean, aside from 84, with Jump especially, obviously, but like if it's not Jump, most of the songs you hear on the radio is from Van Halen 1. And obviously there's a few other scattered in between other records, but mostly Van Halen 1. So it's from top to bottom. It's fucking, there's not a wasted fucking moment on this record. Like there's songs I like more than others for sure, but top to bottom, like every song is a song. Like every song is notable. Very few of these would I forget if I had to write down a set list or a track listing, I would forget. Run with the Devil. The fact that kicks off your first ever major release with that fucking bass line, it's a really ballsy move, and it's like, what am I listening to right now? And then it fucking opens up with the guitar, the whatever, and then goes into everything. Insane. Fucking love that. And I also love, because I was listening to that, I was thinking about the Megadeth story with Ellefson doing that.
No.
And then they got in a fight and then Mustaine had to throw the flower pot at his AC unit or whatever because he kept playing it too loudly.
Yeah, that's how they met.
Story. That's how they met. Yeah. But yeah, and then they talk about smoking weed and drinking and shit. So and there you go. Friendship and band, brotherhood started there, for better or worse. So anyway, yeah, Van Halen 1 for me, if I'm ranking it, it's going to be number 1. So 1 is 1. Just because every fucking song hits, and every song you hear on the radio, every song has been played a billion times. But for my money, I still listen to damn near all this shit when it comes on the radio. I don't skip any of it. Like it's on. I'm gonna listen to it. It's Van Halen.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a classic record. I mean, it's one of the greatest debuts of all time.
Mhm.
That was actually our first episode of the podcast. If you want to throw it back to like 4 months ago now, been doing this a while.
Hell yeah. There we go.
Um, you can throw it back and watch that where we talked about the greatest debuts of all time. I honestly, I don't. Did either of us put this on our list? I think it was an honorable because none of us. I think both of us didn't want to like do the obvious pick.
I think so.
I know.
If I didn't do it, then it's an honorable. If I didn't do it, it's an honorable. But I definitely probably did it.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah. Pretty sure it was an honorable. But anyway, yeah, check that out if you want to. It's an iconic record. Um, you know, it's like Tyler said, it's one of those ones you've heard a ton. I never really get tired of it though,
yeah,
which I do appreciate. Um, I do enjoy Templeman's production on this, and I was texting Tyler back and forth. Like Templeman's an interesting guy because like most of what he did was the Doobie Brothers, and like that type of stuff. Like Van Halen is by far the heaviest band he ever produced.
yeah.
So like
Aside from
Van
Sammy
Halen,
solos, that's how he came
yes,
in. Yeah,
yes. The yeah, I think he did a Montrose record too.
Yeah, Devontra's, yeah,
Maybe
first
after
Montrose too.
Sammy left. Or the first Montrose. Anyway, um, the production on it is different than most like late 70s, early 80s hard rock records. And I mean, he produced the run of Van Halen records, like the first six or whatever.
Yeah,
So it's definitely different than that because it's got a groove. Like, and obviously Eddie's the star on this record.
mhm.
He's a star on basically every record, but like the band is showcased really well. I think on this debut, like re-listening to
Yeah.
it, which I did appreciate it. And I think his production does that. Um, obviously, you got Diamond Dave. I think he got better on later records, and we'll talk about it. But I don't think this is his strongest album.
No.
But it's an iconic debut. It's my number one as well.
Yeah.
Honestly, every track's great, like Tyler said. I think the only thing that is a little bit of a throwaway is Ice Cream Man. It's such an iconic song, but it's just a gimmick comedy song.
Yeah. I
So
watched today. I watched Dave play Stern acoustic with his DLR band in like 2002, and he started playing Ice Cream Man, and I was like, fuck me, I really just don't like this fucking song. It's just stupid. It's a gimmick novelty song. I don't need it on
yeah.
my Van Halen record, and I don't need David Lee Roth doing it acoustically in studio.
Yeah, I think honestly that's the only throwaway. Obviously, Eruption is the iconic solo
Yeah.
there. Tyler didn't get. I'll give my favorite tracks here. You can give yours
Oh,
too here.
yeah.
Honestly, everything is great, but I would say Atomic Punk is probably my favorite deep cut, I guess. And then outside of that, Jamie's Crying. I've always loved Jamie's Crying. Iconic song. It's overplayed, but I love it. Great album cover too. Like it's iconic, captures the band. I'm usually not into like putting the band on album covers, but I think it works. I think it works here, and you got the iconic logo as well. The back, I do not appreciate Van Halen records because a lot of them don't have the track listing in order, which I hate. Like, just put the
Oh, I've
track
never noticed
listing in
that.
order. Yeah, a lot of Van Halen records are like that.
Oh wow, I'd never realized that.
Yeah, you really got me.
Good
Is
call.
the first track on the list? It's not it doesn't
Yeah.
open up. So yeah,
I just know. So some of this is interesting. So because I've looked up Van Halen, it's like maybe a month or so ago. There's a guy that has a video on YouTube. I watched a lot of it. I didn't watch the whole thing, but it's all about Van Halen album covers. And he went over this, and he pointed out that when you turn, so this is the record, right? You turn it over, and it's Dave's, Dave doing his bend back or whatever, right?
Mhm.
But you have to turn it for everything else to read the track listing and everything else. But Ted Templeman is very prominently, displayed in the back here. It's the only thing you can read when you look back. So like, it's a
Yeah.
pretty good fucking spot to be in for your first record. You agree to like let the fucking producer like showcase his obviously his name or whatever. So it's pretty
Mhm.
cool. Also, can we talk about inner sleeves here? And we talk about like everyone just looking real, looking real
Yeah.
good.
Michael
Like
looks.
Michael
Michael
looks
looks like a serial killer.
yeah, well, I was gonna say a little seductive. I was gonna say he's like trying to be a little seductive
I
in this
guess.
picture.
Yeah.
Al looks the worst.
Yeah.
You can barely see Eddie, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
Roth looks like he's fucking asleep. So
Yeah.
he's passing out. So there you go. But
Yeah.
also Al looks like he's fucking 12 years old. Like he's a
Yeah,
baby boy right there.
yeah.
They're only what are they? They're probably 20, probably 22 years. They're only probably like 15 years deep into the chain smoking. So like pretty young on the chain smoking there. So
Yeah.
you know, whatever. This is a
Yeah.
really nice sleeve too. This is nice.
Yeah.
But I have another story for you later for I think for our next record actually.
Okay. What would you say your favorite tracks?
So
We got it. Like one favorite, one deep cut.
all right. So favorite song on this. I will never get over Room with the Devil. I will never get over the fucking the bass intro and shit. It fucking just goes. And the fact that you can hear if you hear that for fucking half a goddamn note, you know what you're gonna listen to. Like you get it immediately. So I love Room with the Devil. I love Ain't Talking About Love. Obviously, it's a fucking big one. Like I still love the fucking hit. Deeper. If I'm doing deeper here, On Fire. I don't know if it's deep or not, but the way that Dave's voice just kind of blows the fuck out at a certain point, even though like it's not really blown out, but he just goes higher and higher and higher, goes crazier and crazier. I'm fucking all about it. So I love On Fire. Yeah, there you go. Fucking Van Halen one, man.
I agree. Great record. We both had it as our number one picks. So they followed it up really quickly. The debut came out February 10th, 78. Van Halen 2 dropped March 23rd, 79. So that's like what, 6 months, something like that. And we can talk about this a little bit too. Van Halen always has, there's so much Van Halen. They always did so many songs. And that's something the fans always talk about, like the extras. Let's release the demos, release all this shit. We know this shit's out there, stuff like that. So we can talk about that. They're a very prolific band at the beginning. And like, as you go through, like, they just like, oh, this didn't make Van Halen 1. Let's just put it on this record. And then like, we'll talk about it as we get through the discography. But so Van Halen 2, what are your thoughts on
Van Halen 2? I like Van Halen 2. It's so on my list. It's not second. But Van Halen 2 for me, it's a pretty good follow-up record to 1, obviously. So I'm gonna pull up the track listing for 2 here to make sure I'm saying the right stuff. So You're No Good opening is fucking so good because You're No Good is such a good song. Every time anybody's ever done You're No Good, it's one of my favorite cuts ever. Like Linda Ronstadt doing it, next level. Fucking love it. So there is some stuff here that I would take out if I was to re-edit the song here. Like I don't need Out of Love Again. I don't need it. I don't need Bottoms Up really. But DOA is fucking so cool. Eddie's guitar in DOA is so fucking cool. Give Me a Doctor, again, also very iconic.
Cool song.
Dance the Night Away. You know, if I had to pick a number one, if I had to pick like my favorite song on here, I don't know, man. Like I like Spanish Fly a lot because it's different. It's the first first Eddie like getting into that sound because I feel like there's a lot of it's almost like for the early records, especially now we're getting into these records, especially with our next record. But you get like a little bit of a taste of where Eddie takes shit later. So like Spanish Fly, there's some sounds on there that you hear that you're like, oh wait, Eddie touches on that shit again later on. So it gets really cool. And Women in Love, it gives the allusions again to later sounds that Eddie kind of goes deeper into. So it's cool. It's a cool little like a little Easter eggs I guess people can listen to later. Obviously in hindsight, but at that point it was still all brand new. So
agreed. So where would you rank?
So for me, I'm doing Van Halen 2. I put it at 4th.
Oh,
for me.
All right, so we're interesting. We're kind of on the same wavelength here. So I think that it is a great record. Like my top 5, my top 2 were very hard. Top 3, honestly, ranking the bottom was very easy. The top was very hard to rank them. 2 I had at number 5. I think it's a great record, but it's definitely a step down from the debut. Like the debu's so iconic. You're never gonna follow that up. while you like You're No Good, I think it's rough to open with a cover. Like you're following up one of the most iconic debut albums with a cover song. I think it's done really
Yeah.
well. Like I don't dislike the song. I don't think it should open the album.
See, I seriously dislike. So I like that. Obviously, I just said I like that a lot. Van Halen covers the prominence of Van Halen covers in the early years is fucking annoying. I don't like it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a later record that's this record ranks really high. Dance the Night Away is my favorite song by far on this. It's my favorite David Lee Roth Van Halen song by a mile. I love that song. I think it's a great mixture of Van Halen. Like it's a fun, poppy, good hard rock song. The only thing I knock against like the first 5 records, honestly, it's just like the similar production. I like the production, but like by the time you get through the first like 5 records, and we'll get to 84, which I think is as a standout, but that Templeman did. But I think like it all starts sounding the same, especially when you binge listen to a lot of Van Halen in a row.
No,
just
100%.
the production. I like the guitar a lot on Out of Love Again. I do like the riff that flows through that song. I did make a note of that. But yeah, it's a solid record. Gets overshadowed by the debut. I ranked it at number 5. My standouts: Dance the Night Away, Beautiful Girls. I like. That's a cool, fun Van Halen song. I did put Out of Love Again and Somebody Get Me a Doctor. Like those are probably my big standouts on here.
The big thing with all those songs, with most of Van Halen, some of those songs especially, Michael Anthony's backing vocals on all those fucking songs, perfect.
Yes.
Like the thing about it, like I guess I didn't really think about it until I forget who said it. Somebody said it, but like if you don't really like take it in, if you don't really identify Michael Anthony's backing vocals, like the first 100 times you hear something or the records, like listen to them now and think about if they weren't there, how different those fucking songs would be. Because so much of those songs are Michael Anthony's fucking background vocals. He makes many of those choruses, so many of those hooks. He makes them all sound a million times better. He's the unsung hero in the band, and later on, obviously, is the only guy that ever gets fucking shit on of the entire band, and that has 2 lead singer changes. He's the only one that truly gets shit on. So, whatever. It's fucking.
Yeah, I agree. So I had it number 5.
Okay. So cool little thing for you. So on the back here, I watched that video, so this is not my original content. I watched a video on this. Dave does the splits, and they did this, I think, at the Troubadour, possibly. And when they shot these, and so when they did that, Dave fell and twisted his ankle really badly. So if you look here on Dave's gimmick, Dave is in the chair, and he has the doctor there, and then his foot is also bandaged up.
I've never noticed that before.
So this is also a shoot. So I think the doctor, or the nurse, or whatever. I think that's they brought that on later. But it's a shoot that Dave had his foot wrapped and he twisted his ankle. So
I don't think it's a shoot nurse though.
Yeah, it's not a shoot. Yeah, it's, I've been in the hospital a few times. It's not the nurses I've had. So maybe not around these parts. But also the fact that this is the guitar. This is the guitar that's with Dimebag Darrell in the coffin right now.
Yes.
That exact guitar. So there you go, man. Fucking cool.
Yep. Very true.
Oh, and you got the flaming drumsticks. This is just really just cool.
The inner sleeve is almost better than the album cover. The album cover is kind of
way better.
Kind of a step down from the debut. It's very plain.
Yeah.
The logo is iconic, but
absolutely. Also, I never realized this until later. They're different logos. So again, a video pointed out to me. Mm-hmm. So the wings are different on the logos when you look at them.
Yeah, and that one doesn't have Van Halen in the middle of it.
I saw that. I could see that much. Yeah. But the wings, I just always thought it was the same logo. And then once I watched the video, and he noted the added wings on Van Halen 2. I was like, oh shit, you're right. I've never realized that those are truly different logos.
Man, neither am I.
Interesting. So there you go. So
Van Halen 2.
4 for me. And number 5 for you.
I was at 5. So we're kind of on a similar wavelength here. So So next up, and Van Halen, like it's just album after album after album. I mean,
Mhm.
you had a massive debut, went diamond. Van Halen 2 came out. It's 5 times platinum. So that's a big fucking drop off. And
But
it's still great.
yeah.
Now let's get to basically a year later, March 26th, 1980.
Mhm.
A year and 3 days. We have Women and Children First, certified 3 times platinum. So we're getting a little Van Halen fatigue, and that's something I kind of want to talk about as we
Yeah.
get deeper into the Roth era. So Women and Children First, go ahead and give me your take and your
Okay.
ranking on it.
So notes here. So there is some filler on there. I like the record overall. There's some filler on it. Something that I never really took in, maybe, is the on Tora Tora. It's a fucking Black Sabbath tribute song. Like it's just Sabbath for like the 45 seconds of Tora Tora. It's just Sabbath. Like I've never, because when I first heard it, like I'm sure I heard it before, I just never thought about it, right? But now listening it back, I was like, this is just Sabbath. And
Interesting.
it's just deep, like fucking, brooding guitar fucking, tone, whatever, right? Fucking love it. So it's still great for me. I don't like Fools. Fools is dumb. That is my note. Fools is dumb.
Okay.
Don't like Fools. Simple Rhyme, fucking great. Because Your Magic's great. Obviously, Credible Rock. Take Your Whiskey Home. It's fine, I guess, right? But Everybody Wants Them is I think the kick-ass like standout on the record for my money if I'm doing that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But if you go back and listen to Tora Tora again, it's an instrumental. It's fucking 45 seconds long, but it's just Sabbath.
That's funny too, because what was it, 78, 79? They opened for Sabbath. That's the tour they blew him off stage every night. That's Ozzy's last tour or whatever. I think it's the Never Say Die tour.
Yeah.
His last original run tour. Where are you putting Women and Children first?
So for me, on my official rankings list here, I put Women and Children at 5.
No, okay.
Yeah.
So here's my notes. I think Women and Children First. It's an iconic 1-2 opening. You open with it's And the Cradle Will Rock, and then Everybody Wants Them. Again, the tracks are not in order on the back of this, which is it's just aggravating as fuck.
Top heavy like son of a bitch.
Yeah, definitely top heavy. Like those 2 songs are iconic. And my first exposure to Van Halen is the Greatest Hits, the Volume 1.
Yep.
Best of. So like I got a taste of all those hits. Like I think And the Cradle Will Rock on there. Everybody Wants Them isn't on there. So like I had heard these songs in that context for so long, like later in life diving into the actual albums and discovering other songs. The first time I heard Everybody Wants Them is from Better Off Dead. It's in one of the best scenes in that movie. I mean, maybe And the Cradle Will Rock. I put it a question mark, but the best Van Halen opening track. I know you like Running with the Devil, but
yeah,
like And the Cradle Will Rock is a really cool song. It's a heavier record than the previous 2 in music and in themes. Like they start talking about it like more mature-ish themes. Yeah, through a Van Halen lens. Like And the Cradle Will Rock is like it's a funny song, I guess, but it's about deeper things. Obviously you get great guitar work. Like it's Eddie Van Halen, but this is a Michael record. I think Michael Anthony really shines on here. The bass playing is really audible. His backing vocals are obviously are essential to the band, which we'll talk about later. It's a classic album for me. It's got great deep cuts. My standouts: And the Cradle Will Rock, Everybody Wants Some. I'd like Romeo Delight. That's a really heavy song. In a Simple Rhyme, really cool song too. I appreciate that. Good. That's the closing track if I remember right. Good closer too.
Yeah.
I put this in a. No, go ahead.
Go on. It's a good closer. It takes you down a little bit and it makes you feel good.
Yeah. I'm on a similar wavelength to you. I put it at number 6, which is like right in the middle. It seems low, but like they got a lot of good records, man. So, and I know Women and Children First like gets jocked by those like the true Van Halen fans, like this and then the next record. Like if you want to seem cool, like those are the records you pick. Album cover is it is what it is. Um, you know, it
So,
is what it is.
oh, also, I forgot this real quick. Hold on.
But yeah, I put it at 6 and Tyler had it at 5. So
Oh, never mind.
I'm,
That's another record. Hold on. So for this, do you have an inner sleeve?
maybe,
I don't have an
I
inner
know.
sleeve in here.
This is the one with the poster, right? Isn't this the one with the David Lee Roth poster that came with it, with him on the fence originally? I do not have an inner sleeve, so
I don't have one either. So I wonder if that wasn't a thing. I've never looked, I guess. I have.
I'm sure it was. I just might have had it. This might be a reissue that just came with a paper sleeve, and I just threw the old paper sleeve away.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of.
It's an old Zia cellophane job at old Zia for $1.99.
Ooh.
So, there you go. Love it.
You're not paying that price today.
It is not that price today. It's like $10, Well, if it's super nice, it's like 22, but
Yeah. Anything that you want to add on to Women and Children first before we move on?
No, I would just tell you to listen to Tora Tora. It's fucking cool.
Yeah, I mean, I did listen to it. I just got to had to re-listen to it with that in mind through a Black Sabbath lens.
I never thought about the Sabbath shit. I never thought about that whatsoever in terms of tour. So that's interesting to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's the record. I mean, maybe not right after. I don't know when 2 came out, so they might have been touring on 2, but I don't know. But that's the record they wrote right after that record, so sort of. Because, like I said, you get into a weird thing where a lot of these songs are leftovers.
Yeah,
like a lot of these tracks are leftover tracks that didn't make the previous record. So,
but the thing that's also prominent here is they also have like the Zeppelin thing, because Zeppelin did the same thing. Zeppelin put out 2 records within their first year of fucking putting out shit, and they 70, 71, 73, like they kept going. Like they kept going and putting more records out there as time went on, and Van Halen started that out too. And they ended up making similar-ish number of records too, which is interesting. But yeah, I think it's a lot of Van Halen fatigue at this point. And again, maybe not for the diehards that are still like super into Van Halen still, but like if your sister had any interest, any of this shit, I think she might be a little fucked out at this point.
Yeah, and the records got darker. So let's get into Fair Warning, which went 2 times platinum. So we went from 10 on the debut to literally 3 years later, we're at 2 times. Basically almost a year later too, from Women and Children First, April 29th, 1981. So Tyler, give us your Fair Warning takes, and where do you rank it?
So Fair Warning is definitely, I think it's the cool guy pick for number 1, like you said, because this is what I've always been told, and what I've always been the conversation around Fair Warning is if you're a musician or a guitar player, or if you know what you're talking about, you pick Fair Warning. That's what you pick because that's the guitar record. That's Unchained. Unchained changed the game. No one knew what the fuck they were doing with the guitar until they heard fucking Fair Warning, and that was the blueprint for every subsequent guitar band afterwards, right? For a good long time. And I can't argue that. I'm not a guitar player, so I don't know. But like, there is different shit on even for me to listen to on throughout fucking Fair Warning that is, I guess, different. I look at this from a weird perspective because we've always had these songs. So we don't have proper context in the moment, but like, I feel like there is different shit you hear on here than what you heard on similar ilk records in that time, right? So it's darker, it's weirder. It's the first synth they ever used for Sunday Afternoon in the Park, which might be my highlight here. Besides Unchained, I love that. I love fucking synth on these fucking records. Like I love it every time. Eddie should have fucking leaned into it even more than they fucking did later on. The guitar's getting crazier. It's definitely a guitar record, like I said, and even for my untrained ears, it makes sense for me. And Mean Streets, the opener is fucking nutso to hear. So, I like it a
lot. Where do you put it?
So I'm putting that 3 for me.
Wow.
I'm an advanced listener. I'm a smart guy. You don't know shit.
Gotcha. High IQ over here.
Exactly.
So I like Fair Warning. I like Fair Warning quite a bit. It's easily for me. It's the darkest David Lee Roth Van Halen
Hmm.
album, the most serious.
Talk
It's
about
not
death
a
and
sing.
murder and shit.
Yeah, it's not a singles heavy album either, but it's got great playing on it. All the guys are great harmonies. I did notate that. Like I think this is a very strong harmonies record. Um, Unchained, it's one of the greatest Van Halen songs of all time. The guitar
Mhm.
intro on that's obviously just classic, iconic. Every time you hear it, it gets you into the song.
Yeah.
Like I did like the debut. I think it's a great showcase of all the guys. I don't think Eddie outshines the guys. The couple previous records, I think Eddie outshines them. Whereas this, I
Mm.
think, like the debut, it's a good showcase of everybody's talent. Um, One Foot Out the Door is kind of the synthy intro to Sunday Afternoon in the Park. But like you
Mm.
said, that showcases the scent, which is a sign of things to come. So the funny thing that everybody apparently bitched about 1984 because of the
It was
synth,
already
but I'm like,
there.
they were already giving you hints of what was coming anyway.
Yeah.
Um, my standouts for me, obviously Unchained. I do like Mean Street quite a bit. And Dirty Movies. I think that's a cool
Very
fucking
much.
track too.
So
Um,
today I listened back to Fair Warning again, and Dirty Movies. I had the lyrics up for every song the entire time I was scrolling. I was working and I was looking at the lyrics and anything whatever. Right. So I was
yeah,
watching and I was like, this is just about a girl either getting put into sex work or becoming a porn star or whatever the case is, whether against her will or whatever, right? Like that's a
mm,
very dark fucking premise for a song here. Like all of them, all of these songs are all built on very dark, weird premises, and that's not
yeah,
what you get from a party band like Van Halen. So like this is going to end up being, like you said, the darkest DLR record for sure,
yes, yeah,
and maybe second just to like another record is going to show up later,
yeah,
as one of the darker ones. Like it's crazy. And for my money, like I don't know, I always kind of go towards the dark shit. Like I think it's way more interesting to go dark than it is
hmm
to like to have the party atmosphere. Even though I love, like I said, love Van Halen one. We already went over it, but I don't know. The dark is always just more fascinating for me. I think for a lot of people, the dark and weird, just gets just that intrigues me a little bit more personally.
yeah, yeah. I agree. Um, for me, I think it's a strong record. I put it at 7.
Oh wow, okay.
Um, so kind of right in the middle there. It seems a little low, but I'll obviously have other things higher later, which we'll talk about.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I put it at 7. I think Unchained mandatory, obviously Van Halen. That's probably the only song I knew off this record for years because I Unchained is on that greatest hits too.
Yeah.
So
I'm the
um,
same way. Wasn't until later
yeah,
in life for sure.
yeah. Um, Iconic record, really good. But let's move along.
Yeah.
Now the next album, 1982, April 14th. So not even a year later. The label went to him and said, "You got to do something else." So we get Diver Down in April of 1982. Um, so yeah, there's the iconic sort of cover. Like I get the point of it. Obviously, the
Yeah.
scuba diving, but it's just pretty plain. And then on Wiki, they said dive her down,
Oh.
HER in the middle. Like that was maybe like a pun or play on words, I guess. Yeah. So yeah, the label went to them and said, "You got to do another record. We need something." Coincidentally, this went 4 times platinum, so they got a boost. Like this is sold more than Fair Warning and Women and Children First, which maybe
Yeah.
the covers helped. But Tyler,
Very.
go ahead and give me your take. And where do you put Diver Down?
Okay. So like I said before, too many fucking covers. Way too many fucking covers here. So out of the cover, what are there 6 covers on this fucking record? 5 covers? The
So,
half covers?
yeah, something like that. I can pull it up, but yeah, go ahead
Yeah.
and
It's way too fucking many. They're done well. They're not shitty. It's fucking. I feel stupid saying I hate the covers. I don't. Pretty Woman's one of the coolest covers they ever fucking did. Dance Night or not Dance Night Away. Dance in the Street. Fucking great, super cool, iconic covers of those songs. You do still hear them on the radio constantly. You do, and those definitely are the reason why they had the major boost in sales. And truthfully, I've heard their version more than I've heard Roy's version of Pretty Woman. Like just throughout my life. I didn't even know
yeah,
it was a Roy song until way later in life.
not me,
So
but yeah,
yeah, okay, fair. Yeah, you're fucking cooler than
like
I am.
I'm not saying that. I can buy it.
Yeah, you shouldn't say that too. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Diver down for me. If I'm ranking it, so I love Little Guitars. Little Guitars, obviously. Hang 'em High is fucking super cool. In the Dance in the Street, Pretty Woman. But for my money, if I'm putting real money on it, Little Guitars, Hang 'em High, my two favorites. So I ranked it at fucking 10.
Wow.
Okay. Down there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's 5 covers out of 12 songs.
There you go.
So that's rough, man. You could tell this is a tired band at this point. You're on the road, you're pumping out record after record. That's 5 records in 5 years. You're dipping into shit that didn't make the first 4 records, and then you got nothing. So you're just like, let's do fucking covers. I like the Pretty Woman cover. I think it's fine. I prefer Roy's version. I got the single in here. This actually came with this. That was cool. It was a
oh wow.
Remember that was at Mike's.
Oh
yeah.
Ingroove.
Yeah, it was at Ingroove. So it was in this when I bought this, which I don't think it was supposed to be. But so I had the Pretty Woman single there. I like Pretty Woman quite a bit for what it is. It's fine. The video always confused me because it looks so old. When I was a kid, I saw that video on like VH1 Classic when I was like 11 or 12, and I thought that was like from the first Van Halen record.
Wow.
For the longest time until I realized this is 5 records in.
Yeah.
Like, because the video looks so fucking old.
Well, to be fair,
I mean, it is old, but
it is old. Yeah, it's 40 years old. Yeah. But it looked old back then too. 100%, absolutely.
Yeah. I do enjoy it. Dancing in the Street's fine, but again, I'd rather just hear Van Halen songs. Like I said with Van Halen 2, opening with a cover for me is just always a bad call. It's always the worst decision you could make. I don't mind if there's 1 cover or 2 covers on an album, but put them down there. Hang 'em High, Little Guitars, easily the best tracks. I think you said the same thing. Yeah. Like I said, it's a tired album by a tired band. A year off would help, which we're getting there. And I think Big Bad Bill, that cover, is the worst thing Van Halen ever recorded.
Same.
It's a fucking waste of time. The Happy Trails at the end, it's just a waste of a minute and a half or whatever it is. Like, what the fuck are you guys doing? You just got to fill up the vinyl like that. No, just so this isn't called an EP. It's fascinating to me that this sold more than Fair Warning. Obviously, it's more poppy and it's got the covers to help, but like Fair Warning is by far the better record. It's the worst David Lee Roth Van Halen album. I ranked it at number 9. So you ranked it at 10. Right. So I was right above you.
Also, Big Bad Bill has Jan Van Halen on it, so it's a whole family. Yeah. So there you go.
It is. Yeah, it is. Interesting too. Only song he ever did with him. So they got a break, a much needed break, and then the next album that would drop would be one of the biggest albums of all time, just like their debut. That is 1984, released January 9th, 1984. It is a diamond album. So one of a few bands with multiple diamond records, and Van Halen is one of them. So Tyler, give us your 1984 thoughts and rank it.
Okay, so I do have got my Jump single here. Got the Jump single. I also forgot I had so many singles that were sitting here. So I have the Jump single. I also have, I didn't see it. I have this Magic single, in Cradle of Rock. Then I have Dance the Night Away.
And that's a cool single.
Pretty Woman, yeah. I think I don't know. I think we picked this up together maybe a few months ago. I don't remember.
I love that Dance the Night Away single. That's great.
Yeah, it's fucking cool. And I don't have a picture disc for that, or a picture sleeve for this, but I don't think they had some for some of these. I've looked them up and added some to my want list over the years. So 84. I mean, like you said, it's fucking iconic. Top to bottom, like it is. There's a reason why it gets jocked, man. Like top to bottom, it's fucking awesome. It's a cool pop record. Like it's obviously at this point the poppiest record they're ever gonna do. Jump, Panama, Drop Dead Legs, Hop Teacher, All Wait. So I've told you this before, and I think you, me, and your dad have the same favorite song, a Van Halen song. All Wait is one of my favorite Van Halen songs of all time. It's such a fucking
it's a great one.
great usage of the fucking synth, and it just makes you feel just different. There's a different feel on that song than the rest of the record.
Yeah, Michael McDonald co-wrote.
Oh shit, I did not know that. Okay, wow, nice.
Yeah, Michael McDonald co-wrote it, and it wasn't gonna make the record.
Okay.
I think David Lee Roth didn't want it on it. I have to recheck the wiki, but David Lee Roth didn't want it, and Ted Templeman didn't want it, but I think Eddie did.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's an iconic song. I agree. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah. No, you're cool. No, I love. I mean, like I said, it's the biggest record. House of Pain is also a cool fucking song. I like House of Pain a lot. Girl Gone Bad, that might be Girl Gone Bad. Top Jimmy, like it's whatever. In the comparison of everything else in this fucking record, they get lost in the shuffle and they kind of are a little. They kind of deemed a little moot because they're between All Wait, House of Pain, and Panama and Drop Dead Legs. Like, those are fucking heavy songs to be fucking bookended by. But yeah, so 84. My ranking for 84 is number 2, personally.
Gotcha. Definitely high up there. I appreciate it. Yeah, the UK single release for All Wait credited Michael McDonald as a co-writer. I think McDonald was brought in by Templeman because David Lee Roth was having trouble with like one of the verses or something. So Michael McDonald helped him with it. Yeah. And then, but he was not credited on the US version for whatever reason. But the ASCAP entry for All Wait lists Michael McDonald as a co-writer with Roth and the Van Halens. Obviously, it's an iconic record. It's got some of the band's biggest songs. You got the iconic "Hot for Teacher" video too. So obviously, MTV really helped this record out too. For my money, this is the best Templeman Van Halen production job. I love the fucking sound of this record. Part of the reason too, because it sounds so different than the first 5 records. Like there's a different feel and vibe to it. I never tire of this record, which is saying a shit ton because like these songs are overplayed to death. Like, how many times have you heard fucking Jump? Like, I would love to have that tracker.
Have you heard Jump or Welcome to Jungle more?
Shit, I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. I really don't know. Obviously, you get iconic guitar work. I think it's David Lee Roth's best Van Halen record. You're getting like David Lee Roth at his peak, David Lee Rothiness. If that's a saying. The standouts for me are Everything. Honestly, I don't think there's a bad song on the album. Drop Dead Legs, I do love that song. It's got one of the greatest Van Halen lines ever. Giant butt, like one of the best lyrics ever. Just giant butt.
Giant.
All Wait is a classic again, like Tyler said. And I do like Girl Gone Bad. I put it on my standouts as well.
Oh wow, okay, there you go, man.
Great album cover too. It changed the vibe. We actually like have like some thought and like some interesting. This got censored in the UK. Like the cigarettes got censored. I was reading. It's just put a sticker over it.
Oh,
so
wow,
it'd be fun.
Okay.
Be fun to find one of those copies in the wild.
Yeah.
So yeah, I put it at number 3 for me.
All right.
So definitely high up there. It was, like I said, the top 3 were really hard because this could have been number 1. Yeah, it really could have. It really could have been. Really could have been number 1 for me, but I did put it at number 3.
Is this the highest selling, or is Van Halen 1 top selling?
I don't know. They both say Diamond.
Yeah, I would assume if we had the numbers, I would assume this is the top selling record of all time for Van
Halen.
Because your sister knows these songs.
Yeah, I'm sure there's obviously one that has sold more, but it just says both are their best selling albums at 10 million copies. So, yeah, I would assume 1984 with MTV and all that shit. I'm gonna assume that. Interesting tidbit that it went number 2 on the Billboard 200. Number 1 was Thriller, and Eddie's on Thriller. So
you put it 2.
Yeah, interesting little tidbit there. So obviously we know what happens next. David Lee Roth departs. He does his solo shit. And Van Halen is without a lead singer. So a lot of bands don't
Fold up
survive
shop.
this. Yes. Some bands do. Some AC/DC sold way more records with
Who?
Brian Johnson than Bon. So so they get Sammy Hagar and from Montrose, and obviously his solo shit too. And you probably know more about this than me, but wasn't it Eddie's like mechanic that told him to get him?
So yeah, so I believe that they went to the Ferrari mechanic, and I think Hagar took his can't drive 55 Ferrari in there, and his mechanic was working on it and everything, and he pulled it in, and they were bullshitting whatever before he dropped it off, and and Sammy was like, "Whose car is that?" And he's like, "That's Eddie Van Halen's car." And then he's like, "You should call him. They don't have a singer anymore. You should call him."
Oh,
And
okay.
he's like, "Oh, whatever, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, give him my number. Tell him to call me." And so the mechanic gave his number to fucking Eddie, and then Eddie called Sammy because of the Ferrari or it's Ferrari lamp. I think it's a Ferrari mechanic. So yeah, if it wasn't for the Ferrari mechanic, we wouldn't have Van Hagar. We wouldn't have these next slew of records. So there you go.
Very true.
Well,
Obviously, it's a polarizing thing, and like when I chose this ranking, I compartmentalize Van Halen because when I chose it at the end of last episode, I talked about like, yeah, it'll be an easy ranking. There's only like 7 records, but like I compartmentalize it. Like I compartmentalize the 6 Roth records and the 4 or 5 whatever Hagar records. So like it's very very interesting that way, and then you realize, oh shit, there's a lot more here than what I remember. But let's talk about this little record, 51 fucking 50. They got a little bit of a break, came out March 24th 1986. So Tyler, go ahead and give me your take and ranking.
So for my money, top down, because okay, so this for the reason we just already said, when you change lead singers, you don't survive, or you fold up shop, or like you get embarrassed because it's like you can't even keep the band together. You think you're gonna move on and maintain the same kind of power, the same kind of notoriety as you had prior. And so they had to do all they fucking could to make this fucking record really stand out and really mean something. And they fucking put on Good Enough as the first fucking opening track. Good Enough is heavy as shit. And it goes into fucking Why Can't This Be Love? And then Get Up, fucking another heavy as shit fucking going song. It's just fucking, it's a really cool record top to bottom. I can't pick out any of these songs that I'm necessarily out on for the most part. Like, yeah. I actually don't really like Summer Nights very much. Like, it's fine. I know that's the first song they wrote together, and it was like the big deal and stuff. And like that was the jam song. You went over there and jam. They wrote Summer Nights the first time they ever fucking met, and this and that, whatever. It's fine. I skip it. Okay, like I don't hate it. I do skip it. I'm just like, all right, I fucking heard this a million fucking times. So for my money, for the standouts, Good Enough, Get Up, Dreams obviously is gonna be a fucking big one. And Why Can't This Be Love? The big ass fucking singles. Those are my standouts. And yeah, for rankings wise though, if I was ranking this, or I am ranking this, this came in at looking at this now, I might have fucked this up a little bit because I did put this at 6. Okay, I put it at 6. So looking at this now, I would maybe revise this a little bit, but I put it at 6. It's already in my notes app, so I can't change it now.
Yeah, no, it's official.
Yeah.
All right. All right, that's offensive, but it's offensive to me. But so let's talk about 5150. So like I said, my introduction to Van Halen is that Greatest Hits, and like those Hagar songs would honestly like probably get played more in the house that are on that record than the Raw songs. So like I have a strong connection to Van Hagar. I always have. Tyler knows that. I was jockeying them before it was cool. All right.
That's true.
You heard it here first. So
I was the one that discovered Van Hagar. Okay, I'm sorry. That's just the way
yeah,
it was. Okay? That's the way it worked.
yeah, me and everybody else who bought this fucking album.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is 6 times platinum. So little band, maybe you heard of them. So I do enjoy the production on this record quite a bit. That's my first note. They went with Don Landy, who worked a lot with Ted Templeman, and Mick Jones from Foreigner. He co-produced this record too. It's got like all the Roth albums except 1984 for me have a really live mix, which isn't a bad thing. But this sounds like more of a band in studio, which I do love. It sounds totally different than the raw shit. And I felt that at that point, using Templeman for the first 6 albums, like 1984 is a great production job, but I still feel like the well had run dry. So I feel like changing it up was a good call.
Yeah.
I think for me, this is the perfect representation of a Van Halen album. Now, I know that sounds fucking controversial, and I have Van Halen 1 at number 1, but I think it's a good mixture of everything. Like, you get good guitar work, good guitar driven tunes, heavy shit. You get good ballads, and you get good synth work. It's like that's Van Halen to me. I think this is Sammy's best sounding Van Halen album. I don't think he ever sounded better.
Okay.
And Dreams is my all time favorite Van Halen song. It's probably in my top 10 songs ever. So like it definitely ranks high for me because of that. But I appreciate the whole record. My standouts are Everything, Dreams, the iconic keyboard. And it features like 3 minutes is I think the first Eddie solo, and then there's like another Eddie solo towards the end of the song. Those are my favorite Eddie solos. I know that sounds really weird because there's like you got Eruption and all this shit, crazy shit, Unchained, all this shit. But like to me, those are my favorite Eddie solos. It's got a lot of soul. It fits the song perfectly. Like it's not just soloing the solo. I love it. Love Walks In, great fucking song. Why Can't This Be Love? Great fucking ballad. 5150, the drums on 5150. Alex is awesome on that song. Inside too, the closer, it's just a good, fun Van Halen song too, and it's different than the rest of the album.
Very different. Very different.
Yeah, you got that synth. Yeah, and it's the synth bass, which adds a lot to it. And then Sammy hits a note at the middle of that song that's like ridiculous. Like he could, like I don't think he ever sounded better to me.
Yeah.
On a Van Halen
Eddie
record.
talked about how this record was the first record he actually could write anything and do whatever the fuck he wants to do because Sammy can sing everything. So like you had no limitation for range, no limitation for fucking style, no limitation for anything. You could write to any fucking beat you wanted to fucking go with. Not literal, I guess, literal, but like, you know, you can do anything you want to do because Sammy could sing it, Sammy could do it, and Sammy brings his own guitar work in too. So you're now officially a 2-guitar band if you need it. You can rely on Sammy to write guitar and play anything on guitar too. Really, you want him to do. It's the first record that he felt, I guess, from his words, the most comfortable with because he could do anything and he could fucking let loose and not hold anything back. So I like that a lot. I like that you can tell because they did go in different directions with this record. And I think it's fucked to blame it on Sammy if you don't like the synth stuff. It's fucked to blame it on Sammy because it's not that Sammy brought it in. It's that Sammy unlocked that fucking tool in the toolbox that Eddie was able to fucking utilize it more because it didn't have any of the sort of like Roth-isms that he had to fucking deal with. So it makes more sense that he brought new things in with a new guy that could do more.
Like we talked about too, they were doing it on Women and Children First. Fair Warning.
Yes.
You know, Diver Down.
They were teasing.
1984.
Yeah. Shit. It wasn't a complete surprise. If you totally were like, unless you fucking heard those songs even back then, you're like, fuck that. I fucking hate that shit. I don't want that shit in my fucking Van Halen. If that was your attitude, I guess you're really livid at this era. Like you get pissed a lot. And you hate fucking 84 too a lot. So like, if that's your true attitude, it's weird, but to each their own. It is what it is, but it's fucking doing these cool shit. So for you, ranking,
this is, and it was their first album to hit number 1, 2 on the Billboard 200. For me, it's my number 2. It could have been my number 1 as well. Like I said, my top 3 are Van Halen 1, 5150, and 1984. Any of those 3 albums could have been my number 1. Like that could have been in any order. So it was very hard to rank them. So the band obviously sold a shit ton. 6 times platinum. It is a little down from 1984, but it's still respectable. I mean, you changed singers. You did end up hitting number one. Obviously, you're selling out shows. You're getting more radio play. Big fucking band. Now, 2 years later, they dropped a record called OU812 that was released in 1988. So basically, almost 2 years, almost to the day, a couple months more. Went 4 times platinum. So Tyler, give me your thoughts and ranking on OU812.
All right. So all the singles are great on this. Like there's obviously, I mean, if it's singles, whatever, they're all fucking really great. For my money, the black and blue guitar is fucking that tone that he has in that fucking song is so fucking cool. I played that song 3 fucking times over again. It continues with the synth, obviously it maintains in the era, and it still sounds as cool as it ever did on 5150. And I think this gave them a little more room to kind of try some shit out and kind of figure some things out. Their sound, because 5150, they had to prove themselves there, and they had to fucking deliver on that record really heavily to just even make their names and like make their mark again as a band. So they managed to do that. I was going to mention they made more money on the 5150 tours than they ever did for any other previous tour. Like per Sammy's gimmick, whatever fuck he talks about, is before Van Halen made money, whatever the hell. But like when he came in, he said he was making more money solo. Like he was grossing more money solo than Van Halen was as a band, because Van Halen was fucked with their business and shit. They just weren't doing things correctly. So when Sammy came in, he brought in his fucking manager and shit. He was like, "We're gonna do this right," and he made more money there. So they're all fucking super rich at this point. So for me and my standouts for OU812, I'm pulling it up here. So obviously, When It's Love, that's one of my favorite songs Van Halen ever did. I love When It's Love. Cabo Wabo, very Zeppelin, very cool sounding. Sammy's vocals on that fucking song are super cool. And Eddie's guitar work. And Finish What You Started. Again, you know, the singles are fucking so good. There's some other shit, the later Sucker in a 3-piece and Apolitical Blues. Like, I don't care. They're fine, but it's not really where it's fine, whatever. But I'm not going back to them. For my ranking for OU812, I put it at 7.
Wow. Okay. As much as I love 5150, I equally hate this fucking album. Like it's, and Van Halen 2 is kind of a disappointing follow-up to the first record, but it's still a great record. Whereas I feel like this is just a disappointing follow-up to 5150. When It's Love is a great ballad, but that is basically all you get on this record for me. Finish What You Started is fine. I do like that song, but it never did anything for me. I think the mix is fucking awful. Like it just sounds muddy and like gross. Like it's one of the worst produced Van Halen records for me. It's very thin on the bass. Like I guess Michael was pissing him off at that point. It's very thin on the bass. It feels so good. I did write that the keyboard riff is pretty catchy on that. For me, the standout is When It's Love. That's the standout there. I put it at number 11, so second to last for me.
All right.
It's not one I'm not gonna want to spin off. Then we didn't talk about 5150 either. Great album cover, and then this following up, like this album cover is awful.
That's the Beatles thing they were doing.
Okay. 5150 is a great cover. And then like this is the follow. I don't know. I get it. Yeah, you're right. It is like the Meets Wheels.
How do you feel about the hand gimmick?
I don't know. What does that mean? Is that like V for Van Halen or something?
I guess, yeah. That was yeah, DDP. Yeah, this is the thing. And like I fucking hate when you go like throughout I think it's Without a Net. The entire fucking Sammy does that fucking constantly. He's like, oh, he does it constantly, and I always think you look fucking dumb. Like you look dumb. Okay, like
kind of cringy.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm out on the hand symbols here. But all right, so 11 for you. All right, you're down there on on the.
Yeah, it
we
was
went to.
11 for me.
Also,
They basically self-produced this. Like Don Landy came back, but everything I read, like the band just kind of took over, which I think was a terrible mistake. Like I don't like the production on this record at all. So if you got anything to add on before we move on, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I forgot. Fuck. We went to. Oh, the title was also the stab at Dave. So like it was a gimmick title on it, which is interesting. They were making
because
they could have just ignored him.
Eat 'Em and Smile was one of the Dave solo records. So
yeah, like you're bigger than Dave at this point. You didn't have to make a response or make it the title of your fucking record. Like
I also read that like Sammy saw it on the side of a truck too.
Okay.
So I think it might be a little bit of both. I think the David Lee Roth dig kind of got added on after the fact, like in the Van Halen lore.
The revisionist history.
Yeah. Anything else you got before we?
No, I'm on. So for me, 9 for you, 11. All right, there we go.
Yep. All righty. So it took a little bit of a break there. Now we got a new record in 91. For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. Mm-hmm. And this album is probably one, unless Tyler pulls out this fucking CD.
I don't have it.
Probably one we don't have. So I will pull up the wiki so we can talk about the track listing and look at it.
I thought I had tapes of all these records, and I don't. Or if I did, I don't know where they are. I thought I had tapes all. I thought I had acquired them throughout the years, and I don't have any. Or I don't know where they are.
Gotcha. So let's talk a little bit about Fuck. So Tyler, what is your thoughts and ranking on Fuck?
Okay, so for this, we're getting to the weird time where like all the singles again are fucking super cool, but there's still a lot of like filler. In and Out is a fucking stupid song. Like I'm fucking out on that. Like you do get Pound Cake, you get Judgment Day, fucking kick off the record, 2 kick-ass fucking songs. Right Now obviously was the big Thought single, right? Like that was the MTV video and everything else, right?
Oh yeah, giant song. Yeah, like Spanked, it's whatever. Like the singles are great, but then there's not a lot of highlights there between for me. Okay, interesting. All right,
yeah. And then my ranking on Fuck, I put it at or excuse me. Oh, you went to a 7. I put Fuck at 8. Okay. So I misspoke just right now. So there we go.
All right, got you. This album, I knew the singles quite well. Pound Cake's an awesome fucking song. I think it is the greatest use of an impact drill on an album ever. Like that's a fact.
Second to none, really.
Yeah, they brought back Templeman for this record. Mm-hmm. I think the production is really fucking solid on it. I enjoy it. It's really thick. I like the sound. It's a bass heavy record. I think Michael really shines. I think this is Michael Anthony's best Van Halen album. I think the bass and his playing on it is the best it ever was. Having listened to everything all within the last 4 or 5 days, re-listened. My one knock on this record is like the sexual innuendos become a little bit much. Like Pound Cake. Yeah, Pound Cake, Spanked. Spanked is a fine, like, musical song. It's one of the worst lyrical Van Halen songs ever. You know, about calling into a sex chat phone line. Like, it's just one of the worst. The musically, it's fine. The lyrically, I'm just not into it. I do really love the bass on that song, which is a common theme. It's got a really good groove, like, throughout the record. They get proggy on Pleasure Dome. Pleasure Dome is a sick fucking track.
I thought you might like it. Yeah.
7 minutes. I remember hearing that song before when I listened to it, but it just didn't catch me. It reminds me a lot of a 90s Rush song. Like, I don't know if they were listening to any of that, but the production on this record, that song in particular, like, you get in some longer tracks. Like, it reminds you a lot of 90s Rush. Like kind of like a low IQ 90s Rush. Nothing against them as people. I just mean like the concepts in the record.
Yeah.
For me, the standouts are Pound Cake, Judgment Day, Awesome 1-2 Punch, Pleasure Dome. I fucking love that song. Right Now, I never get sick of Right Now. I love the piano on it. The video is iconic. Top of the World, I did put on there as a really solid closer too. That was one of the singles as well. I disagree with Teller. I think this is a pretty solid record from top to bottom. I don't think there's a lot of filler on it. Like, I feel like they still had something to prove here, especially after OU 812. They basically, a lot of the guys, Eddie, like, hates that fucking record from what I was reading. So, like, I feel like this is a record where they had something to prove and still remain relevant, which I really appreciate. I put it at number 4. Like, it cracked my top 5.
Wow. All right.
I enjoyed listening to this more than Van Halen 2, which I would not expect listening. I listened to this like 3 times.
Oh, wow. Okay. Nice.
Yeah, it was multiple listenings for me. Yeah, like my only knock is just like the lyrical themes. They just get a little much. Like Pleasure Dome, In and Out, Spanked, Pound Cake. It's like, how many fucking songs can we write about, like, or use sex as a euphemism? Like, come on, guys. But yeah, I did enjoy it. So the album cover, it looks like a football or a basketball. I don't know. It is what it is. I do appreciate this logo. Like, this is probably my favorite Van Halen logo ever. So any other thoughts?
Hold up, isn't it the same logo? Yeah, I guess it's the same logo as Inner.
It's in 5150.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, I never realized that.
Yeah, and it was the same logo on the best of too. I think that's why it resonates with me, because I just grew up looking at that.
The most.
The black also, with the gold. So
forgot about this too. I have Finish What You Started. So I got
nice.
Those. And then I got When It's Love as well. Forgot about that. So those are my endings on those. Oh, and then also the last one I got here was the Dreams live record. It's not out yet at this point in time, but Dreams and Judgment Day from Right Here, Right Now. It's about to come out, but it's not out yet.
Yes. Yeah. Alrighty. So we're pretty heavy into the Sammy era. We're done almost. The next record that would come out is a record called Balance, and that was 1995. Let's pull this up here. So let's talk about Balance. Tyler, what's your review? Where did you rank it?
So my notes on this. So I think that Balance is the best sounding Van Halen record of all time. It sounds the cleanest. I think it sounds the cleanest.
That's so weird.
Do you have the exact opposite opinion?
We'll talk. Yeah. Just
okay.
Go ahead.
All right. I think it's the cleanest sounding fucking record it's the most polished record they ever fucking did. And I think that, like, Sammy's vocals, like, and you can make the argument that it's too polished in my eyes. But I think it's the best sounding record they ever did. Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do, Can't Stop Loving You. And for my money, like, I think Seventh Seal is one of the fucking coolest songs they did in this era. It's a fucking kick-ass fucking opening track too. Like, I've heard the song before 100%, but because like you and I, same introduction here, introduced to Van Halen through the Greatest Volume 1 initially, and then, you know, whatever. But so Seventh Seal was something that came on later in life for me for sure. But it's fucking a cool fucking opener. I dig it a lot. The subject matter in this is very different, obviously, than what the other records are, especially the most recent, the Fuck record. But there is still a lot of stupid songs on here that I don't give a fuck about. I think Amsterdam is a fucking stupid song. I don't care. I know it's like an ode to the Van Halens, obviously coming from over there in the Netherlands,
Denmark.
But Denmark. There you go. Whatever, Denmark. But Big Fat Money, it's a fucking stupid song. I don't like Amsterdam. Strung Out, fine, I guess, whatever. And then Doing Time, fine, we're good. But Can't Stop Loving You, for my money, one of my favorite Van Halen songs of all time. Fucking I will never skip that song. I think the sounds on it, the opening is fucking one of the coolest sounds they ever did. So super into that. But given the fact that I feel as though there's a lot of filler on this record, I put it at 9 for my listing.
Gotcha. I thought you were going to go higher than that based on your glowing review of the production.
Okay.
My first note is I really dislike this production. Bruce Fairbairn do it. Yeah, which fine, whatever. He did Bon Jovi stuff and Permanent Vacation, Pump, Get a Grip, so that 80s Aerosmith shit. Yeah, 90s, early 90s too. To me, this record sounds nothing like that shit. Like, to me, this record has no dynamic to it. Mm-hmm. Like, everything sounds to me like on the same level, same plane. So that's my biggest knock against this record. I do really enjoy Seventh Seal. It's a different Van Halen song. Interesting little tidbit here in the wiki. Like Eddie said in 2012 that song was written before even Van Halen was a band.
Oh, wow.
So,
I didn't know that.
He already had those ideas. So yeah, it's got those monks and the bells and shit. Like, it's a totally different Van Halen song. I do really like it. I think it's a solid opener. And it talks about, that tackles themes like Van Halen rarely ever talks about. Can't Stop Loving You, solid ballad. I don't like it as much as Tyler does. The reason I don't like it, I hate the fucking guitar sound on it. Like, it's like tinny and pingy. Like, the acoustic guitar sounds bad on it to me. Like, it's grating on the ears. Like, that opening riff, like like, it's like, what is happening? Like, why does the guitar sound like this? It's so pingy. Like, I do enjoy the song for what it is, but that's my biggest knock on it. Sammy sounds fucking awesome on that song. Yeah. I did highlight that. The rest of the record for me just kind of blends together. Not Enough is a good, like, sappy ballad. Again, the whole thing it's awful production for me. It's weird how the ears pick up different things.
It's fair. Yeah.
My highlights were Seventh Seal, Can't Stop Loving You, and the instrumental, which is Bal Tritium. I like this song. I think it's really cool. It's got a cool plotting bass line. I looked this up. This is like one of the largest land mammals that ever existed.
Okay.
It went extinct years ago. And like, when you know that, you can tell like why they wrote the song the way they did, because it sounds like a plotting, like, this fucking beast is like lurking through the fucking forest.
I can dig that. Yeah.
So like, when I looked at the meaning behind that word, the song had more meaning to me. So I put it as a highlight. For me though, this is the worst Sammy record, or not. Well, no, OU ain't one too I had, but this is the second worst Sammy record.
Yeah.
So I put it at number 10. So
okay.
And again, like, similar to the Roth era, it sounded like a tired band. Mm-hmm. Like, they just started hating each other. It ran its course, and it's weird because 1984 they ended on a giant high note, but like Diver Down, like, you could tell they were getting tired. And like, similar, like, Balance is like their Diver Down. Like, it's just like, you're tired.
That's what I mean, because I listened to an interview with Sammy, and Sammy was talking about how, like, it was the end of the band, basically. Like, he knew going into it or coming out of it that he knew, like, this was going to be it. Like, the odds are, last record, we're going to break up, I'm going to leave, something's going to happen, I'm not feeling this. He was also going through a terrible divorce and doing all that, and he was in a really bad spot. That's why it is one of the darker sounding records, and there's a lot of dark content on the record, because
it is, yeah.
He had those experiences, and he was going through that at the time. And his wife too, I remember, like, when I read his book, his wife was had a lot of mental health issues, and so he was dealing with all that. And then, like, he has a lot of regret and resentments towards himself for how he treated her, and he didn't have enough patience and love for her. And he talked about how he cheated on her all the time on the road, and he just justified it by saying, like, well, she's, I can't deal with her, so, whatever, I'm just going to keep throwing myself into this and these women and everything else, and just kind of keep doing this so I don't think about it, and it's going to make me feel better or whatever. And he says he doesn't do that stuff obviously anymore, but that was his like turning point for his views on a lot of things with love and marriage and relationships and everything else, and appreciation and respect and whatever. So that's why the record sounds the way it does. But he likes the record a lot, but he just doesn't like that necessarily like the fact that it's coming from the worst parts of his life and the behind the scenes kind of vibes with the band, because that was when the camp started, and it was Dave and Mike, or not Dave and Mike, Sam and Mike versus Al and Eddie. He just hated that, and that's kind of what started here. So
yeah. And ultimately, Sammy would end up leaving the band, and Van Halen would be doing another lead singer shuffle. They had that weird reunion. That was before this, right? The weird reunion with Roth, and then they dropped the awful Me Wise Magic. That is one of my most hated Van Halen songs off the Volume 1 Greatest Hits. Those two songs are bad. You have Humans Being on that Greatest Hits, was a fucking excellent fucking Sammy song. Also Twisted.
Yeah, that was.
I know Tyler loves it too. So
yeah, I love it. It's fucking awesome. No, we just talked about this actually. We were at the record store. We were talking about the Greatest Hits, because that's truthfully, like, Sammy had the vibes on Balance, but truthfully, it was over with the Greatest Hits because Sammy didn't want to do it. Because Sammy, his views were that the Greatest Hits, that's when you're done. You're done. You don't have anything else left. Like, that's when you do the Greatest Hits. We're still a band, so why would we do Greatest Hits? And then Geffen came and approached him about doing a Greatest Hits, and he decided to do that. And then, but the reason he did that is because he was going through the divorce, and he was using that as a payoff for his ex-wife, so that she got all the money from the Geffen Greatest Hits, and he never had to fucking deal with anything, and didn't get any more money. She got every dollar from that Greatest Hits that he would have gotten, and that was his reasoning for doing it. Well, Eddie didn't accept that as an answer, and so when Sammy pushed back on the Greatest Hits, Eddie was like, "What the fuck? You just did a Greatest Hits. So why the fuck are we not allowed to do that? What are you talking about?" And Sammy wanted to do a tour on it. He wanted to tour the Greatest Hits, or Eddie wanted to tour the Greatest Hits, and Sammy said, "That's fucking stupid. We're writing songs. We're gonna make a fucking record. I'm not gonna tour a Greatest Hits. That doesn't make any fucking sense." And so that was the big, the breakup basically. And then that's when Eddie called Sammy on, I think, Father's Day, and told him, like, "Hey, you've always been a solo artist, and you should just be one again. We got Dave over here now, and it's working out great. So, I think you should be a solo artist again." And then, they did the MTV Movie Awards, and had the weirdest, most awkward interactions and shit.
Yeah. Yep.
I watched those interview clips from afterwards, and they break up again with Dave. I watched those interview clips like a dozen times in the last week, and every single time makes me so uncomfortable, because they both look like they're fucking conservatively 65 years old. They both look like shit. They're sitting in the studio on the couch and shit, and it's the same clips you've seen a million fucking times. Eddie looks fucked. He does not look the same fucking person. And he looks like Lou Reed, who, after 35 years straight of chain smoking in those fucking clips. And you have Alex there, echoing, and they're both just echoing each other, and it's just fucking bullshit. It's a stupid interview.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously that was short-lived, because they did those couple songs or whatever, got in the studio doing shit, and then Dave was gone. So, and you can't go to Sammy after you just burn that bridge. So what do you do? You bring in Gary Cherone, and you drop this little record, Van Halen 3.
Yeah.
The sequel. The sequel many years later. So let's talk about Van Halen 3. Tyler, what are your thoughts on it, and what is your ranking? I have a feeling I know where it is, but go ahead.
Yeah. So Van Halen 3 is definitely 100% the record I was least familiar with, because I definitely bought into just the constant, even before you and I were friends, that was still the punchline fucking for 5. I don't know. We met in 2004 or whatever, right? So, and this, for the 8 years before this was even out there, 6 years before, it was still a punchline for a lot of people as being a fucking terrible business decision, terrible musical decision, all that stuff. So I bought into that years and years and years. And this is the first time I ever actually listened to it. And I am a little bit biased, because I did watch the Todd in the Shadows video maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. So he points out, he goes through the entire record and points out everything. And you showed me that 2 years ago, I think. And then I watched it again. Video. It's a great video. And everything he said is dead on. It's a very weird. It's a lot of weird sounds. It's very mixed up. There's no real direction for a lot of the songs. A lot of the lyrics are fucking stupid. And it's it's a lot of unchecked Eddie. There's no real collaboration there. It's just a lot of Eddie just basically making his record that he wanted to do, and everyone kind of just going along with it. So for my money, it's the worst Van Halen record. So it's at 12. And I don't really want to go back to it. Like, I also think it's a very weird choice they did for Gary Cherone, because on a lot of those songs, we've talked about privately a million times, a lot of those songs just sound like Hagar. You just sound like Sammy, which is not a bad thing, but it's very weird that you go directly to a Sammy. I don't think that's a conscious thing. I don't think he did that. Like, I'm going to sound like Sammy. I think that was a direction they wanted to take.
Have you ever listened to any Extreme? I mean, you've heard More Than Words.
Yeah, I've heard. Yeah, that's all I got.
Have you ever listened to anything else on like
no
Porno Graffiti or anything?
No.
Those records get jocked a lot. Like, they're that type of band, like the guitar playing and shit. Like, I know Nuno.
Nuno is fucking gnarly.
Yeah. Here's my thing. Like, if you listen, I know a few Extreme songs beyond More Than Words. Like, Get the Funk Out. That's a cool song. That's off that record too. Gary Cherone sounds nothing like Sammy Hagar on those records.
Okay.
So, like, my note for this album was like, why is he sounding like Sammy? Did Eddie tell him to try to sound like Sammy? Did Gary Cherone go like, I need to sound like Sammy? It's so fucking weird to me. Like, Cherone, like, he doesn't really sound like Roth on those Extreme records. He's his own singer. So, like, it's so fucking weird. I had the same note on there. My initial reaction, like, I knew the Todd in the Shadows. You might not remember this. This is one of the first things we ever listened to on Spotify.
Because we both had never really heard it, right?
Yes.
Or never.
We listened to it in. Yeah, it might have been It was the Jetta.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember
crazy.
we were going to like Tempe via Old Mill.
Yep.
And like we were like, let's listen to Van Halen 3 because now we can actually listen to it.
Yes.
And that's the first time I ever heard anything outside of. I mean, you didn't even mention the Lethal Weapon song.
Well, I did my notes.
Okay.
No, so
but go ahead and finish your thoughts.
Oh no, I'm cool. So my notes to finish that one out. So it's weird Hagar-esque sounds. Without You is odd. It's a weird fucking thing. Fire in the Hole is just dumb fun. It's just a very dumb fun song. But I also have a pretty heavy attachment to that song because that kicks off Lethal Weapon 4, which is my favorite Lethal Weapon movie. And when I was a child, I knew about Van Halen. I didn't know Sammy Hagar. I didn't know any of that shit, but I knew those songs, the Sammy songs. So when I was a kid seeing Lethal Weapon 4 for the first time, I'm sure I didn't know this at the time. I'm sure my dad said something. He had to have said that was Van Halen. He had to have said something because I didn't know. But I just remember thinking for years that was Sammy. For years, I believe that was Sammy Hagar. And it wasn't until later in life that I was like, oh, that's Van Halen 3, great Gary Cherone. And that's also like, I don't know the date, so that's 98. So I don't know what came out first. I didn't look it up. I'm sure we could have looked it up or whatever. But I'd be curious to see what came out first. This is March of 98 for Van Halen 3. I would assume that Lethal Weapon 4 came out after that, probably summer. It's kind
Lethal Weapon 4 came out July 10th, 1998.
So after, okay. So it could have still been in that initial push, like, still brand new Van Halen song. You're going to hear it. Probably people heard it for the first time. A lot of people heard it for the first time on that soundtrack and in that scene, right? But yeah. So I haven't attached to that song. It's dumb fun, but I wouldn't put it on an all-time list by any means, right? So that's why it's last on my list for personal favorites.
Gotcha. Yeah, my biggest notes is the Cherone, like the sound alike to Sammy, which is weird because he doesn't sound like Sammy. Like, go back and listen to a couple of those Extreme songs, and you'll get what I'm saying. It's such a weird fucking album. Like Tyler said, it's just an Eddie solo album. He just started doing shit. He just played bass on most of the album. Like Michael Anthony plays on like a few songs. Michael Anthony even says that in an interview. It's like Eddie just started taking over. He's like, okay, whatever. Eddie brought in Mike Post to produce. Mike Post does TV theme songs, like he did the Law and Order theme song. Todd in the Shadows talks about this too, but I was reading more about that, and like that's what I wrote. Like, this record sounds like movie soundtracks, or like or TV soundtracks or theme songs. Like, that's what the record sounds like, and it sounds like just a bunch of ideas Like, and some of the songs have good ideas in them, but they're like just so spread so thin. Like none of them are combined into like one good idea. Also, How Many Say I? Eddie Van Halen sings that song.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, why is Eddie Van Halen singing? He doesn't sound awful, but it's like
You've never heard it before.
Yeah, and you brought in this new guy to sing, and you take him off of a song, which is funny because I was reading in the wiki, there's an interview with Eddie, and Eddie's like, I didn't want to sing that song. Like they kind of forced me into doing it. And I was like, okay. I'm like, it's your record, it's your band at this point. Like, I don't even understand what the fuck is going on at this point. It's clearly the music suffered from that. Ballot or the Bullet is awful. That is also one of the worst fucking Van Halen songs. Just awful. If I had to choose any type of standout, I would say Once is probably the only interesting thing. But even that track is just like background music for a TV show or a video game. Or I also put like Cinemax Porn. Like listen to Once again, and like you can picture it like a Skinemax movie.
Yeah.
I ranked it at number 12 too. My standouts are basically nothing. I never want to listen to it again. The album cover is awful. It's just the Cannonball Roberts guy. Like why?
Yeah.
Why is that the yeah, like why is why? It's just a stock picture and they just put Van Halen 3 on it. I don't know.
I tried to look at it like, cause you do this sometimes when like you hear like the some of the raps on records sometimes like you would like that record if it wasn't this band. If that band didn't exist in that bubble and you just had this record separately, like if that you in a vacuum all that shit would right, like that's where that record would be cool if you didn't know anything else. No, this record still sucks. Even if it's a brand new band, this record's still weird and dumb and kind of doesn't really go anywhere and doesn't really do what you want it to do. So you know, it's not good. It's a bad time.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So that dropped in 98. It went gold, which is still pretty impressive. All the Sammy stuff sold really well. I mean, you had 6 times, 4 times, 3 times, and 3 times. So it's still maintained decently. And then you had a big drop off with gold. And then they started recording a follow up with Gary in 99. And I think what I read was the label was just like, no. They kept sending songs. They kept sending songs, and it was like, there's nothing here. We don't want this. So that was the last Van Halen record for a very, very long time.
14 years.
They did some reunions. You had the Roth reunion. You had the Best of Both Worlds greatest hits, which was a much better greatest hits because you had much more selections. It's a dual discer, and it always pissed me off that they mixed the songs up, though.
So I read into that a little bit. I read an old interview with Michael back in like 2006. It was coming off of the reunion tour with Sammy, and they were talking about the track listing. He said a lot in that interview actually, because he talked about the first attempted reunion with Roth around the greatest hits package, and when they were talking about shit, Roth just like when they were doing the new songs, Roth kept bringing in weird shit, and he was like, "I want to be Chemical Brothers," and he bringing these fucking CDs like that's what I wanted to be. And Eddie's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And like, I don't know if it's real money, like whatever. I think Michael might have just talking, just and hyperboles. But he was like, "Here's the thing, the guy's ego, you couldn't check it for $50 million. He couldn't put it on the back burner for $50 million. That's just who the guy is. So the guy, you can't get that. You can't get through to him. So they talked about the greatest hits, though, the Best of Both Worlds. That was a Dave move because Dave didn't want there to be one desired over the other. So if you want to listen to Van Halen, you had to listen to his songs too, even if you hate because in his mind, I don't know if he thought like maybe like people would go to the Sammy songs first. Like, I don't know. Like, I think that you're not going to be disrespected there. Like, they're not piecing it out, so you're never going to lose face. So if they sell 30 million copies of this record, you're still selling 30 million copies of the record because you're on the record, right? It's a double discer. Yeah. But I think he thought if you piecemealed it out and you have a Sammy greatest hits and a Dave greatest hits, and at that point there could be a possibility because I think the numbers do run up where Sammy sold more records than Dave did. I don't know overall or whatever.
No.
Is it really far off?
Well, unless I mean, maybe if you count the best ofs and shit, and the live record, I don't know.
Yeah,
But you have 6, 3. Now this is in America. I don't know about worldwide.
Yeah.
But you have 6, 4, 3, and 3. So that's 6. That's 12. That's 16. Yeah. And Dave has 2 diamond records.
20.
So
220. Okay, yeah. So maybe it wasn't enough. Maybe it wasn't enough for Dave, and he still felt self-conscious about it. But he didn't want a possibility where he could be outshined and overshadowed by a Sammy package.
Yeah.
So
such a weird. It's cool because he got more tracks, but such a weird comp, and obviously all that backstory there. So Van Halen's kind of a shit show, and they were for a very long time during that period. Basically doing nothing, not even touring, just doing shit, doing nothing. And then we get an announcement, and I remember this vividly, that David Lee Roth is coming back. They're reuniting.
Oh yeah.
And I remember being like, "What the fuck?" 07? And they did the big. Yeah, they did. They did something like that. Yeah, they did the big reunion tour, and then in 07 they reunited with David Lee Roth. Left the band in 85, came back in 07, minus that little late 90s thing. They did basically their highest earning tour ever on that reunion tour. And then we get word of a Van Halen album, a different kind of truth, released February 7th, 2012. I remember it like it was yesterday. And this is their first record off Warner Brothers too. That's the interesting aspect of it. It's on Interscope.
I didn't know that. I never looked at that before until you texted me the other day and say it wasn't on Spotify. And then my thought was like, why the fuck is it on Spotify? They've been on Warner Brothers their entire careers. Why the fuck is it not on Spotify? That's very weird. And then I when I looked at it, I didn't text you. I meant to text you. But when I looked at it, I was like, oh, it's on Interscope. That's why. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's on Interscope, and it's not on any streaming. It used to be on streaming services, and it dropped, I think, last year. It was like 2022. When it dropped off, because I remember it on Spotify. I remember seeing it quite a bit, and I went to go re-listen to it, and like, well, okay, it's not here. So I had to listen to a YouTube rip. I listened to a vinyl rip of it, which I was looking at comments on Discogs. Apparently, a lot of people were saying the vinyl version is the premier version of it. It sounds the best over the CD, which is okay. So Tyler, what is your listening experience with this, and where do you rank A Different Kind of Truth, the last Van Halen album?
Okay, so for my money here, again, this is the first time I'm not like I've listened to the record before. I absolutely have. Okay, but I definitely did not listen to it very intently. I remember when it came out because I remember betting a good old buddy of mine, Darrow Weilberg, because Darrow would he was a massive Van Halen mark, and so Darrow would always bring it up. He'd like, new Van Halen record this year. He said that every year for like 5 years. He's like, new Van Halen record this year, and I would constantly go, Darrow, it's not gonna come out, man. It's not coming out. Like, it's not gonna happen. And he's like, new Van Halen record this year. He kept saying it, and then finally it fucking happened. Then I remember being at Zia with him, and I believe you were there too. We were at Record Store Day, and Darrow bought the LP, but he also bought the big fucking poster gimmick, like the record deal. He bought that too, so he got that for the record, and both those are a squillion dollars now, I imagine. The record is like $300 or something or other, and it was a Live Nation exclusive, but Darrow bought that at Zia, so I don't really know what all that means.
I guess Indies got it.
Yeah, there you go. But in terms of the music, okay, in terms of the music here, basically for me, it's all dog shit the first half until you get to Honey Baby Sweetie Doll, and you get real weird, and you get real manic, and real like fucking purpose, fucking like you Eddie's guitar work on those fucking songs, the last half of this fucking record, it gets bottom heavy for me, and I listened to that probably 3 or 4 times from Honey Sweetie Baby Doll on. It's fucking cool. It's a cool fucking record because the first half and the singles god awful. She's a Woman in
Okay.
Tattoo, fucking horrible. That's bad. But Honey Baby Sweetie Doll, Trouble with Never, Out of Space, Stay Frosty, Big River, and even Beats Working, I'm all over it for
Okay.
that bottom heavy record. But everything else for me could fucking fall away. I don't care. Dave's too Dave on the record. He's doing too much dumb shit. And I think a lot of the songs would sound fucking cooler without Dave on them. If this is an
Oh, wow.
instrumental record, I think it'd be fucking way better. So whenever that gets leaked at some point, I'm gonna be fucking all about it.
Yeah, where do you rank this?
So it's 11th for me.
11th. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I feel like you're leaving something out, but we'll have to recap here. Now, should be known, like, a lot of this stuff is rework songs. It's stuff they had in the vaults, stuff that didn't make old records. So a lot of this stuff isn't rewritten stuff, which I don't care. Like, it is what it is. Like, they rewrote a lot of the shit and re-recorded it. So it's not just they're releasing demos.
Yeah.
I have a weird history with this record that Tyler knows too. Like, Tattoo is awful. Tattoo is an awful fucking song. I hate that song. That was the lead single. And I immediately was like, nope, I'd never want to listen to this. So, like, this record, I really didn't dive into until this ranking. So a lot of this is really, really fresh. That's a terrible lead. Swap Meat Salad. That is a lyric.
Salad.
Yeah, I don't like that song at all. I tend to agree with Tyler that the latter half of the record does get pretty good. I like the middle though. Like, all my standouts are You and Your Blues, Chinatown, and Blood and Fire.
Okay, wow. All right.
I thought those songs are pretty heavy. I think it's a really heavy record. Like, Eddie's still really,
it is.
Yeah, Eddie's still really good on it too. Like, for 2012 Eddie Van Halen, like, it's still really good. Like, I'd be interested to see if, like, a couple years later, if they did like an actual record of writing shit, how it would have happened.
Yeah.
And how, like, of not just going to the vaults, but actually, like, sitting down and doing new shit. Interesting about this record is, like, Roth had a lot of say in it. Like, he's the one who chose the producer, John Shanks, who's done like a bunch of pop artists, mostly just a pop producer, pop writer. I don't think it really has a pop production though. It's pretty heavy production.
It's a pretty raw sounding record in a lot of places too.
Yeah. Yeah, they thought about, like, self-producing it. I know, like, Rick Rubin was tossed around, but then Roth suggested John Shanks, and that's who they went with. Roth also told them not to do it at 5150. So they did it at Henson Recording Studios. So, like, and Roth did it a lot on this record as far as, like, rewriting lyrics and shit. And he played the synth on Tattoo, and then he even has a guitar credit on Stay Frosty, which is interesting. So it's weird how, like, Roth came back to the band, and it, like, Eddie gave a lot of reins over to Roth for this record, and same with Wolfgang. That's something we didn't mention either. Like, Michael Anthony didn't get invited back because he's in the Sammy camp. So yeah, Wolfgang is on this record. It's his only Van Halen record. He's fine on this. He's a competent musician. But these songs miss Michael Anthony. And I think this is a better record with Michael Anthony. I think the top half of the record gets better if Tattoo is better with Michael Anthony. It's still a bad song and bad lyrics, but I think it's better with his harmonies and his backing vocals. For me, I put it at number 8.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I think it's a better record than Diver Down. Like, I think these are better songs than Diver Down. I think Diver Down was a tired record. I think Balance is a tired record. OU1812 is just completely disappointing follow-up for me. And then 3 is awful. So, like, yeah, it fell right in at number 8 for me. So yeah, that's basically the Van Halen story. They did a tour for that record. And then that stopped. And then we lost Eddie, what? It was 2 years ago?
Yeah, they did a few tours after that because they started and stopped a few times. I know that we didn't go and consciously tried to or wanted to, not tried to go necessarily. We wanted to go. I think the 2 different tours they had, 2 or 3 different times they went and played cricket, because I remember they had the last time they played cricket. I remember there was a massive deal that happened. It was like buy two get one or buy two get two or some shit for like lawn tickets or something or other. Like they weren't really doing too well, at least here. And I remember we talked about going, we never did, obviously, and that's a regret, obviously. But yeah, it would be really interesting to hear whatever Eddie was working on. Like, I know that he's when we talked about, he's very prolific and he recorded and did shit every day, because Eddie Van Halen didn't do anything else. He only played guitar and wrote music and just fucked around all day, every day, and he recorded basically everything he ever fucking did. So like, there's just tapes on tapes on tapes on tapes on tapes on tapes of that dude just noodling around, just like hanging out. And while obviously I don't think the majority of it's anything more than just him fucking around and doing what he wants to do, I would be really interested to hear whatever could have been the next fucking round of shit, the more recent times, because the sounds on this record are pretty different than what they were previously kind of diving into. Even if it's old stuff, there's still sounds on here. Like I said, the latter half that I'm a fan of, that's shit that Van Halen was never going to do in any other era. I think that, because you've mentioned that Roth did a lot of stuff and had a lot of say here, where else were they going to go? I think that was Eddie's view. Like, what are we going to find another lead singer when we do this again? Like, fucking Roth is driving me up the fucking wall, because like, even like when they did the press tour and there's all like the interviews and stuff they put together, they put everybody together, and like Eddie kind of defers to Roth for a lot of shit. He's just kind of letting Dave do Dave shit, and like that's like, Eddie wants to tell it, back in the day, he fucking hated it. And he didn't want fucking anything to do with Dave being Dave for the most part, especially with press interviews and shit. So like, I think Eddie viewed it as like, we're just here, we're in it. Like, if it's not working out right now, we got more time. So maybe we can fucking, do this thing with Dave right now. And if we go to another lead singer at some point, I guess that could be a thing, or make things happen with Sammy again. If we want to make up after, horrible fucking breakup, I don't know. But I think that's why he deferred him, because he was just like, there's nothing else we can really do here. It's kind of where we're at.
Sure.
So
I agree.
Whatever. Yeah.
My last little tidbit about the album: it reviewed really fucking well. It sold really well. It's the band's 14th consecutive top 10 album in the US, which is fucking
number 2, right?
I believe. Really, what number 2? Do you know what number 1 was?
2012. So what was it, like Jay-Z or something?
No. One of your goats.
Oh, Bruce?
No.
Oh, I don't know. Zeppelin? A Zeppelin box?
No.
Oh, was it?
Billboard 200 number 1 wouldn't have been a Zeppelin box. Adele.
Oh.
21.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, they were not going to fucking knock that something off.
So
that thing was fucking
prevented another number 1 Van Halen album. It reviewed really well. Like I said, Rolling Stone, they named Stay Frosty as the 16th best song of the year. The readers of Rolling Stone had it as the 5th best album of the year. All the outlets pretty much loved it. Like I said, it went gold too, which is pretty impressive for fucking 2012.
Very impressive.
And my last little tidbit here before we wrap it up is I applaud them for doing it. And a lot of it was Wolfgang too, because he started digging into shit and kind of got his dad, and then his dad was like, I want to do this with my son. So I appreciate that aspect of it. I would have loved Michael on it, obviously, but and it could have been awful. And I think that's why a lot of legacy bands don't do shit and they just rest on their old shit. And I think that's why we don't have a Guns N' Roses album, is because you don't want to release a fucking god awful album, because then that's the narrative. It's like, what have you done for me lately? So like Guns N' Roses can come out and just tour on the same 20 songs, where if you do a new album and you actually want to play those songs, they got to be decent. So like, or else you just look awful. Like, that's why Crew will probably never do another record. Maybe, even though Nicky's been talking about shit with John in the band now.
Is that we said? Shit.
Yeah, we didn't do music news tonight, but yeah, there's more shit going on in that camp, because Mick called them out and shit. And anyway, I commend them for that, because it could have been awful. So I give them props for pulling off something that actually is done well. So yeah, that's the Van Halen story. Interesting rankings there. So just to recap here, my number 1 was Van Halen 1. My number 2 is 5150. Number 3, 1984. Number 4 was Fuck. Number 5 was number 2. Number 6, Women and Children First. Number 7, Fair Warning. Number 8, A Different Kind of Truth. Number 9, Diver Down. Number 10, Balance. Number 11, OU812. And my number 12 was Van Halen 3. So Tyler, if you want to recap yours.
So mine, so Van Halen 1, number 1, 84, number 2, Fair Warning, number 3, Van Halen 2, number 4, Women, Children First, number 5, 5150, number 6, OU812 is number 7, Fox, number 8, Balance, number 9, 10, Diver Down, 11, Different Kind of Truth, and 12 is VH3.
We had a lot of similar shit there. They're very close, but then we like went off on like a little bit. Like I think you didn't give enough respect to 5150, but it's all right.
I know. Right. I don't know why I did that. I can't take it back. It's in the notes app. I can't take it back. But looking at this now, I should have ranked it way higher. I definitely should have. I don't know why I did like an initial ranking or something in my head, like just listing shit off, and I don't know what I did. It's very funny to me. It's maybe not funny. It's sad, I guess, if you really think about it, that we were talking about how much music was out there initially with Van Halen. Just record every fucking year, every 8 months, right?
Yeah.
For the last 25 years of the band existing, 2 records.
And 3, I guess. Like, 3, right? Different Kind of Truth, Van Halen 3, and then Balance.
Well, I'm talking about now 25 years. So 25 years from back.
Oh, yeah. Balance is 95. So, yeah. It's almost 30 years ago. Jesus.
Yeah. 100%. So, like, so you do 25 years. They did 2 records. They did a live record later with Dave, the Tokyo record. That's it. That's all and then they had, I guess, the greatest. They had the 5.
Comps.
Yeah, the comps, and there's 5, I think, total new songs between both the greatest hits. So if you do all of that, you got nothing, damn near fucking nothing. And it's sad as shit that that's the reality of it. And like Sammy always talks about it. And again, I don't know why he'd lie at this point. I think Sammy's got a pretty good fucking track record here, just like saying what it is, like not saying everything's a gospel, but why the fuck is he lying about shit? But his view is that he fucking, when he came in the band, he ran the band. It was his band at that point. They didn't know what the fuck they were doing. Their business was fucked. They never really knew how to make decisions because Dave made decisions before the band or before he was in the band. So like when Sammy came in, he thought that just like everybody else, he thought the Van Halens are Van Halen. And so when he came in, it was really weird and it was really shuffled about and they didn't really know what they wanted to do. And then Sammy was the one that actually had to make the fucking dates. He had to go, we should go out here because, once we go out in September, that's everybody's, school's back in, kids are, there's no more traveling. Everybody's back home and doing this stuff, whatever. Go out in September because that makes more sense. We'll make more money here, holidays and this and that. Like Sammy was the one making those decisions. The brothers never came with shit. And he's like, and you think about it, and if they want to call me out and say I'm lying about that, when I left the group, what happened? Nothing. They did fucking nothing. They did a record with a new guy. They toured for fucking 6 months. They fucking didn't do shit again. Then they later released another record fucking 12 years later. 14 years later, they put another record out. Like, without Sammy in the group.
That was all old songs.
That was mostly old songs reworked or whatever, right? Yeah. But for the most part, they did very few things that wasn't touched by Sammy Hagar since 1986. So it's
you're 100% correct.
It's pretty fucking crazy how that worked out. And again, it's sad because they were just rudderless. They were just rudderless for 25 years.
Eddie and Al are obviously great musicians, but not great businessmen. I never think they really understood the business aspect of music, just as an outsider looking in. Or the brand of Van Halen. They never really took advantage of it. We were just talking before the podcast. Like I read an article where Ben Affleck was trying to license Jump for his the shoes movie. And he's like, I couldn't really get a hold of anybody to license the song. And he was like, it just wasn't worth it at that point.
Yeah.
So like somebody wants to pay you to put it a movie that's going to be giant, wants to pay you money to license, and they can't fucking get what are you doing? Like I don't understand. And I understand Wolfie
for 2 years.
Yeah, I understand Wolfgang doesn't want to do anything with that because like it's not his say. Like he's like it's Uncle Al's say, which is good because Uncle Al was in the fucking band, so it makes sense. But they were even before Eddie died. Like it's just like you don't hear Van Halen shit in stuff.
No.
I remember you heard in Ready Player One, That's like one of the only things in that movie and in the one of the commercials for that, one of the trailers, Jump is in that.
Oh wow.
So Spielberg got it, but I guess Ben Affleck couldn't get it.
Linklater.
Yeah, true.
Everybody wants that.
Yeah, it's.
But you're right. It's
Yeah.
not there. It's not as prominent as it should be. But the thing about it is like Van Halen, like for fucking better or worse, they could have fucking toured on Van Halen every fucking summer since fucking 2000 and fucking whatever the fuck 2007 when they came back. They could have
Guns N'
toured
Roses doing it right now.
Exactly 100%, and they're doing more business, more money than anybody else in the fucking world. So Van Halen could have done the exact same thing, and they could have fucking ran it and probably sounded better too, because Dave is going to sound like Dave regardless. And if you really wanted to do it and you wanted to make up with Sammy, you could actually had a good fucking good vocalist, a good fucking show, good music, and everything else. You could have ran Van Halen into the fucking ground and oversaturated the market with Van Halen shit, and you guys didn't do it. You could have did a
journey. You could have did a Journey and just got another guy that could sing both eras, and people would have still paid money for that. They could have still toured on that up to Eddie's death.
For sure.
Like they could have got an unknown singer that could just sing both eras really well. Everyone would have bitched, but everyone still would have paid money and went and saw it.
Yeah.
Like it's such a weird band, but
and they talk about it like with the tribute shit because they're managed by Irving Azoff now. He's like the most powerful fucking dude in music. He's their fucking manager of the band. He can fucking make anything fucking happen. He can make anything fucking happen. And the fact that they can't pull together to actually fucking work this shit out and get a tribute going after 2.5 fucking years of this man being dead. You can't do a date at the fucking Forum or some shit where you have Sammy come back and Dave come back and this and that. And you have Wolfie saying, it's not me. Like you said, it's not me. It's Al, because we find out now that Al is the one that actually ran the band, even though Eddie is the guy. Al is the one that second to Eddie, or no, Eddie was second to Al. Al is the one that said yes to shit at a certain point. So he's the one that actually ran the band, and Al has a problem with fucking Sammy. Sammy's reached out multiple times since, Eddie passed. Al's never fucking replied. They've never talked to Michael Anthony again. So like, and Wolfie is more or less cool with everybody because he doesn't have a fucking bitch. He doesn't have a dog in the fight for a lot of this shit. I don't think he has old resentments that his dad had. And for all we know, we're told Eddie and fucking Sammy made up before they passed. And it's Dave holding things up, maybe. I don't know. But we've talked about privately a million fucking times. If it's Dave's fucking issue, then you do it without Dave. And you bring in fucking Justin Hawkins, bring him in, do fucking the tribute show, bring in 1 million guitar players and shit, do an all-star fucking event because everybody and their mother will fly out for that fucking thing to be a part of it. You can do 2 nights if you really want to do that. It doesn't matter. Do something, but the band is so fucked up, they can't get together. They can't fucking agree on how to fucking salute their fucking guy.
Yeah.
That's how fucking stupid they are.
We're maybe getting something because we're getting the Hagar reissues, and I read an interview with Wolfgang recently that he said like Alex has signed off on all that shit, so he signed off on the Right Here Right Now or whatever, the live album coming out for Record Store Day and stuff. So we're getting something. So hopefully they continue. Hopefully they continue with the Sammy reissue, because even though I don't hate Balance, but I'm not a great. I'll still buy it. I'll still spend $50 fucking dollars on that stupid record 100%. Just to complete the fucking collection. So I don't want to spend the $400 or whatever it is for it. So I want the reissues. Hopefully they get it together. Last little tidbit here before we wrap this bitch up. Tyler chooses the topic for next week. Is, to your point, the one time where Eddie ran everything was Van Halen 3, and look how that turned out. And Sharon said it in an interview I was reading. He's like, we did it wrong. We should have did a tour first, introduced me to everybody, and then done a record. And you shouldn't have brought in a TV producer, and you should have asked Gary Sharon what he wanted to do. You should have utilized your brother and Michael Anthony to write a fucking album. That record could be really good. It's not Gary Sharon's problem. That's not he's not the issue with the record, other than sounding like Hagar. So to your point, like that's what happened when that band that is named after the family was left to their devices, and that's what you got, which is crazy. So anyways, that wraps up the Van Halen ranking. I had fun with this. appreciated going through these albums. It's always daunting to do it, but it's fun when you actually get the nut cutting time. So
For sure.
Tyler, we always end the episode with the choosing of a topic. I chose tonight's topic, the Van Halen discography rankings. So Tyler, what do you got coming up for next week on the podcast?
So we talked about it before. I'm finally gonna pull the trigger on it. Vinyl regrets. Things that you had at one point and got rid of, things you did not buy when they were new, or you found them used because you thought the price would drop more, or you thought like, I'll see that, they'll reissue that, whatever the case is. And now you're looking at something that's $1,000 fucking in certain cases. So the vinyl regrets.
Yeah, we kind of tackled some of that last week too. Check it out. We did albums that need represses. So check that out if you're into that type of stuff. So Tyler going more physical media aspects, really diving into the vinyl aspect of the channel, which I appreciate. So yeah, that'll be coming at you guys next week. If you made it this far, give us a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. But anyways, guys, we will see you next time on the Living Dead Wax podcast. Peace.